I don't think the mayor understands what's going to happen on November 1st. There is going to be a catastrophic manpower, staffing shortage. I was told not to use the word manpower. Staffing shortage if 3,500 firefighters that are currently unvaccinated are told to not go to work. We've been scraping together people to show up for work for the last several months just to keep firehouses open. You're going to see dozens and dozens of firehouses closed. You're going to see response times climb. It is inevitable. Lives are going to be lost. That is irrefutable.
Did you hear what the fire department of New York's union president just said? That number he spit out? 3,500, 3,500 they've got to fill quickly over vaccine mandates. The New York Post has published an op-ed which says a police exodus would be catastrophic, of epic and bloody proportions.
Shalom. Like to give all honor, glory, and praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Like give double honors to our apostles and elders, great millstone. Salutations to our sincere Akim, pushing us right across the four corners of the world. And as you just saw from this previous video, based in New York City, where they are declaring it as the police and firefighter exodus. And these particular groups are considered the backbone of American society. So without these emergency team responders, that's going to cause a lot of chaos, disorder, violence here in the streets in America. So as you know, with NYC being that chief state or that empire state, it's going to be a ripple effect amongst the rest of the states here in America. And we already know through the spirit as the hopeful elect, this is all engineered and planned out by the Most High Yahweh's left hand tool, representing the tabernacle of Edom, beginning with these higher ups. They want these people to be disruptive. They want these people to be chaotic, fighting in these different protests and riots so they can bring forth their so-called order, going into this global reset. So we are definitely in the signs of that times, meaning biblical prophecies fulfilling itself. As it says in 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, beginning at the top, speak to the ears of my people the words of prophecy, because they are faithful and true. So everything is coming to pass, whether these people want to believe it, accept it or not. So this is the book of 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, the 12th verse. Egypt shall mourn. And Egypt is a spiritual code name for America. Also, Babylon the Great is another spiritual code name for America. So in this sense, it's speaking about Egypt shall mourn, meaning these American inhabitants are in a state of sorrow, grief, because things are not going as they planned. They was thinking that things would get back better once they start being compliant to wearing the mask, social distancing. Then Esau pushed that field goal post even more further by having the people go ahead receiving these jabs. So here they are being compliant to that, and things are still not back to the same as pre-C-19. Then on top of that, you have this global supply chain crisis happening, causing food prices to soar. And these global supply chain executives are telling people to brace for a chaotic holiday season. Here we are in the so-called holiday season. These people are supposed to be in that jolly type of merry spirit. But pursuant to the book of Ecclesiastes, the 12th chapter, as it says, those that look out the window should be darkened. So these people's hopes, dreams, aspirations, it's all diminishing here in America. So Egypt is mourning. And that's beautiful to us as the hopeful elect to see and witness these things, because these prideful people definitely deserve it, especially 2/3 of our people that are clinging on to this society. So it says Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua shall bring upon it. So think about the establishment or the foundation of America, how it was so-called started or established. By blood, by murder, by rape, robbery, by lies, by violence. So that's the same pressure that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is going to take America out. Which leads me to the book of Revelation, the 18th chapter, and the 21st verse. And it says, and a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence should that great city Babylon be thrown down. So we are in that process, pursuant to biblical prophecy, that America is reaping what it sowed. So that's why I said, thus with violence should that great city Babylon be thrown down and should be found no more at all. And that's by the way of nuclear war. where those nuclear missiles from these other countries, along with America's allies, is going to wipe this whole landmass of America desolate. America would be known as that great desert among the world, and rightfully so. So jumping back to 2 Ezra 15, starting again in verse 12, and it says, Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai shall bring upon it. And part of those plagues are going to those afflictions, this global supply chain crisis, which is causing a lot of these different commodities, these food supplies, these gas prices to inflate. And that's causing a lot of these Americans to be in that state of mourning, that state of grief and sorrow. And that right there, through the Spirit, leads me to the book of Isaiah 19 verse 1, the burden of Egypt. So another word for burden is going to that pressure, that weight, that anxiety that's upon these different inhabitants of America. Things are not going like they planned. And here we are in the so-called holiday season, and you're having these toy companies warning the people to go ahead and buy gifts for your children now because we are running out of stock. So that right there alone is a burden upon these different American families because they take this so-called holiday season, especially Christmas, very serious. So it's becoming a burden or pressure upon the inhabitants of America. So the burden of Egypt, behold, Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai riding upon a swift cloud, meaning a chariot, and shall come into Egypt. And the idols of Egypt should be moved in his presence, and the hearts of Egypt should be melt in the midst of it. Verse 2, and I will set the Egyptians against the Egyptians. So remember, we read in the 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, how Egypt should mourn, meaning America. So right here again, this is speaking about spiritual Egypt, going into these Americans. So it can say, and I will set the Americans against the Americans. And that's what you're seeing, all types of division here in the so-called United States. You have the maskers against the anti-maskers. You have the people for the jab against the people not for the jab. You have these Republicans against the Democrats, the conservatives against the liberals, and the list goes on. So it's separation here. And as Yahweh Shai stated, when Satan is being divided, that's how you know that you are at the end of that particular kingdom or empire. And that's exactly where we are in today's time, pursuant to biblical prophecies. And that leads me to the book of Isaiah 24, verse 10, the city of confusion representing America. So that city of confusion, that city of chaos, that city of disorder, more proof that Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai is not with this place, because the Most High, he's not the author of confusion. So that's what America represents, the city of confusion. And as you just saw from this previous video, this place is being broken down. You have sanitation workers are neglecting picking up trash in New York. So that's causing a lot of trash to pile up, all because of these vaccine mandates. And now you have these police officers and these firefighters not being compliant to those jab mandates in NYC. So the city of confusion is broken down. Pursuant to Ecclesiastes, the 3rd chapter, how it's a time to every purpose under the heaven. And right now we in the time of this place breaking down. We are in the time of mourning. Which leads me to this article right here from News Target. And it says at least 26,000 public employees in NYC are refusing the jab. And this was published on November the 3rd, 2021. I'll jump down to the point. It stated, losing roughly 17% of its public workforce, the Big Apple is now bracing for closed firehouses, fewer police officers and ambulances, and another big one that many people have overlooked, less than optimal trash pickup, because these sanitation workers play a very huge part in American society. So by them not accepting these jab mandates, they causing trash to pile up. And that right there alone can lead to a lot of diseases. It's unsanitary. So that city of confusion is being broken down on all types of levels. So going back to 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter, and the 13th verse, they that till the ground shall mourn, going to these farmers. For their seeds shall fall through the blasting hail and with a fearful constellation. And just more proof how the word of Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai is faithful in truth, meaning biblical prophecies. This is another article from naturalnews.com. And as you can see from the title, farmers all over the world are worried the supply chain crisis will affect next year's harvest. And this was published on October 28, 2021. So again, the word of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua are faithful and true. Seek ye out the book of the Lord and read, and none of these shall fail, meaning biblical prophecies coming to pass. We are in the signs of our times. And that's exactly what makes the Holy Bible separate from all these other books. It's a spiritual, historical, divine book. And as it says, none shall want her mate. So none of these other Bibles can stand against the Holy Scriptures, because we are seeing what was written thousands of years ago being played out in front of our very own eyes in today's time. So farmers all over the world are worried the supply chain crisis will affect next year's harvest. So this is going to the time of drastic shortages. It's going to be a great famine hit all over the world, especially that main hub representing America, Babylon the Great. So jumping back to 2 Ezra, the 15th chapter and the 14th verse, woe to the world and them that dwell therein. That was written within and without, lamentations, mourning, and woe. So we are in those times. Verse 15, for the sword and their destruction draw it nigh, and one people should stand up and fight against another, going to these class wars, and swords in their hands. So just imagine when you see these different videos over the years of Black Friday, how crazy these Americans be acting within these stores, fighting on things they really don't need. So how much more when Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua is going to use that left hand tool again, Esau Edom, to tighten that grip more and more by these draconian measures. And these Americans are really going to be fighting for food. And it's really going to be food riots, because it's going to be that type of mindset and vibration upon this place of America. Get it by all means. Survival of the fittest. Because these people are going to want to feed their families, their loved ones. So they're going to do by all means to get that type of food, water, any type of supplies to help their family survive within these drastic times. Verse 16, for there should be sedition among men, and sedition going into a rebellion, disturbances, overthrows. Because the more that the Most High used Esau Edom to tighten that grip, the more that these people are going to become agitated. They're not going to be too compliant with these different laws and mandates, because they feel like you're taking away their freedoms, their pleasures. So it's going to be an overthrow within these authorities. And it says, in evading one another, they should not regard their kings nor princes, going to these different authorities within this government. And the course of their actions should stand in their power. So as we see, it's going to get very brutal out here, especially when these people not going to have the necessary amount of food and water. So that's going to make them become more animalistic. These people are not governed by Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua in the spirit on the right-hand side. So they're going to tap into their left-hand side even more so. And they're going to become very demonic. Verse 17, a man should desire to go into a city and should not be able. And that's prophesying about these martial law checkpoints. And they show you that on the movie I Am Legend, starred by Will Smith, that those things were happening within the collapse of a society. And a lot of people might say that's just a movie, but movies imitate life. And that's Esau's way of prophesying on that left-hand side. He shows you through movies, through TV shows, through cartoons, through commercials, through newspaper articles. That's his way of prophesying, because they feel like they got to tell the people what's about to occur before it actually takes place. Remember, he has that God complex, so he feels like he's the Most High, but on that left-hand side. So he has to prophesy about foretelling the people what's going to happen, whether they hear or forbear. So a man should desire to go into a city and should not be able, and here's the point, for because of their pride, the cities should be troubled. And you heard what the Fire Department of New York Union's president stated at the beginning of the video. Lives are going to be lost. So without these emergency team responders, they are not going to be responding to these different shootings or these robberies happening within these stores or homes, not responding to these domestic disputes. Just imagine how chaotic and violent it's going to be out here. And those demonic spirits that's going to be walking out here, they're going to attack some of the most vulnerable, which are you powerful women. Because majority of these women, they love to resort calling 911. They keep them on standby. But here it is with your so-called security that you trust in, they're going to be telling you, please hold, or we are out of service. Or if they do respond, that response time is going to be very slow. So by that time that they make it there, or if they do, then wherever the crime that was, it been already took place. There's nothing for them to do about it. So with those demonic spirits out there, that's going to lead to a lot of these women getting ravished, which pursues two biblical prophecies as well. That's why it's stated, the city should be troubled, because these people, especially these powerful women here in Babylon the Great, are going to be in that spirit of despair, hopeless. So it says, for because of their pride, the cities should be troubled, meaning a state of distress. And what's that main trouble or affliction that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is going to bring upon 2/3 of our people that don't want to come into the way of obedience in these last days? It's going to be a times of Jacob's trouble, a time that this world has never seen before. And it says the houses should be destroyed and men should be afraid. And that's also biblical prophecy, as it says how Egypt should be like women. These mighty men that this current world holds in prestige and rank, they are going to be like women in the times of distress. And remember that pride is speaking about the pride of these Americans, these spiritual Egyptians or these spiritual Babylonians. And further prove that, let's get Isaiah 26 verse 5. For he, meaning Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua, bringing down them that dwell on high. And that's speaking about these higher ups of Esau, Edom, along with these other nations that are joint heirs with them. The lofty city, and that lofty city is going to the exalting city that carries itself with much pride and dignity. And that's going to America, being that hammer of the earth, that destroying mountain which destroys all the earth, as it says in the book of Jeremiah, the 51st chapter. So for he bringing down them that dwell on high, the lofty city, he laid low, even to the ground, he bringing it even to the dust. And that's by the way of nuclear war, and also by the fire that Yahweh Shai, along with the rest of the angels, are going to bring too. So the Most High, through his son Yahweh Shai, is going to bring the elites of Esau, Edom, from this trillionaire status all the way down to servants, slaves, in the next kingdom to come. So back in 2 Ezra 15 verse 18, for because of their pride, the city should be troubled, meaning havoc, devastation, especially without these emergency team responders. The houses should be destroyed and men should be afraid. So that's that burden of Egypt, that weight, that pressure, that anxiety, that depression that Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua is going to bestow upon these American inhabitants, including 2/3 of our people as well. And these people are going to be chaotic here in the streets. And that's when this government of Esau is going to bring forth this so-called order, which is going to this global reset. So what you saw at the beginning of this video, that caught my attention through the spirit, with that fire department of New York's union's president stated, it's going to be catastrophe of epic and bloody proportions. And what he stated through the spirit was very profound, because that matches up with biblical prophecies. And then as it says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled. So those are the times that we are in, pursuing two biblical prophecies. So I brought this out. You all was edified. You all stay strong. Keep pushing forward. Shalom.
Fewer cops will certainly mean more killing. And remember, not one police officer was vaccinated before this year. They were among the few professionals who kept coming to work to protect the public at great personal risk. Their reward, forced vaccination on pain of dismissal. Jason Rance is in Seattle now, radio talk show host. You are also seeing this issue play out in real time. Your take on what New York's about to face. And it affects, what, there are 8+ million people in this metro area.
Yeah, what you guys are going to face is pretty straightforward, actually. Your city will be more dangerous than it was before, which for New York City is a pretty frightening thought. The NYPD will be understaffed, and they're going to do what's happening here in Seattle, which is lean on non-patrol officers to take those roles.
What does that look like?
And you can do that for a while. Well, what it looks like is a detective who's working on a murder case is no longer working on that murder case, or a domestic violence unit officer gets to respond to 911 calls. That means that the criminals that they're trying to nab on previous crimes are still out there recommitting. Yeah. And then, of course, on the firefighting side, you lose all those firefighters. Understand that, for the most part, these shifts are 24 hours. So what they're going to do is lean on overtime, which, number one, is incredibly expensive. Number two, the burnout rate is very, very high.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
can't keep working 24-hour shifts, right, over and over and over again. So to say that this is catastrophic of bloody epic proportions is possibly an understatement with what New York is about to experience. And I'm glad that people are pushing back. I am not anti-vax. You are not anti-vax. I am vaccinated. I think there's a good argument to be made for most people to get the vaccine if they want it in consultation with their doctors. It's not anti-vax to be anti-mandate. It's pro-freedom to be anti-mandate. And I think that's the leading issue here. Whether we're talking about New York City or Chicago, San Francisco, or Seattle, that's what we're hearing on the ground. This is a slippery slope. Because let's say you get to the 100% vaccination rate that they want. Okay, well, if COVID doesn't go away, and we know it's not going to go away after that, well, then what will they demand? As a condition of employment, what will they demand? Why are we okay with that?
Yeah, these are all excellent questions. And then while we watch something that the president really triggered with his own flip-flop on the issue of vaccine mandates and with the threats of companies as small as those with 100 employees having to put this in place. Now we're seeing it feather out across the nation. You know what we're not seeing, and again I say it, is the President of the United States, because the longer he makes the nation wait, it's building behind the scenes for him. An issue just like this, Jason Rantz, everything starts to percolate in his absence.